everyone, and welcome to day 5 of Vlogmas. So for today's Vlogmas, I figured that I would do a book tag, and I'm going to be doing the end of the year book tag. I thought doing a book tag would be really fun because I didn't really have anything else planned for today, and I figured it would be a little bit boring just seeing me laze around the house doing nothing and being really uninteresting. So I scoured YouTube and found a little book tag that I wanted to do, and that had some pretty good questions. And it's also not too long, which was another thing I was concerned about. I'm like, I don't want it to be like 20 questions long. I just want to do a quick little fun book tag. Okay, so we're gonna get right on into the first question, which is, are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? So I actually have a whole stack of physical books that I need to finish, and I was thinking that I might try to focus on those for the next few weeks until January begins, because I would like to get as many of them completed as possible so I don't go into 2024 with a huge stack of physical books that are still hanging over me. It's really been bugging me because I have them in a stack by my bed, and I just chose one of them to talk about, and that is The Light We Lost by Jill Santopolo. I'm currently 157 pages into this book, so just like halfway through, I would say. I started this sometime this year, and it's still been sitting by my bed ever since then for months. It's like, I think it's got a little bit of dust on it actually. And I actually was really enjoying this book, so I'm not sure why I haven't finished it. I think I just have been getting worse and worse at starting and completing physical books, but this was a really interesting one. And basically it's set in New York, and it follows these two people who have kind of been in like this on and off again relationship. They have continued to think about each other even when they're not together, even when they're dating other people. In some sort of way, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Normal People by Sally Rooney. So I feel like if you like that book, you might really enjoy this one. I think the best way to describe this book is the very last little paragraph of the synopsis, and it says, "What follows is a 13-year odyssey of dreams, jealousies, and ultimately of love. Their journey takes Lucy and Gabe continents apart, but never out of each other's hearts. And Lucy will find herself asking, was it fate that brought them together? Is it a choice that has kept them away?" And I think that that describes this book perfectly. From what I have read so far, it has just completely ripped my heart out. So I'm excited to finish this book up by January. The next question is, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? And this is one that I'm currently reading. I'm still trying to get through it, and I'm loving it. And that is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. I am currently, let's see, I'm currently 209 pages into this book. As you can see, I get to the middle of physical books and then just stop reading them for some reason. It's really easy for me to begin a physical book. It's much harder for me to complete them, and that is something that I've struggled with since high school. If you look back at my Goodreads and you look at my Goodreads challenges that I've been doing since like 2012, you will see in those first few years that I only read a handful of books each year, and that's because I would start a lot of physical books but only complete maybe 10 of them. And that is something I still struggle with, and I am going to turn 29 next year, so it's a lifelong issue. But I am really enjoying this book. It is so different than I expected it to be when I picked it up, and honestly when I bought it, I genuinely didn't really know anything about this book besides that everybody loved it and that it was a really great book and I should totally read it. But now that I have started to read it, it is 100,000 times better than I could have expected it being. On the back it says, Agnieszka loves her valley home in a quiet village, but the corrupted wood stands on the border, full of malevolent power, and its shadow lies over her life. Her people rely on the cold, driven wizard known only as the dragon to keep the wood's dark forces at bay, but he demands a terrible price for his assistance. Every 10 years, one young woman must be handed over to serve him without question. The next choosing is fast approaching, and Agnieszka knows, everyone knows, that the dragon will take Kasia, or Kasia, I can't remember how to say her name. Beautiful, graceful, brave Kasia. All the things Agnieszka isn't, and her dearest friend in the world, and there is no way to save her. But when the dragon comes, it is not Kasia he will choose. I'm just gonna go with Kasia. I did listen to a little bit of the audiobook at first. That's kind of why I have an idea of how the names are pronounced, but I didn't really like the narrator for this audiobook, so I decided to read it physically, and that's why it hasn't been finished. But it is a very autumnal book, and I think it's perfect for like the transition from fall to winter, and I'm loving it. It's so good. I just cannot say enough good things about this book. It is like raising the bar for fantasy for me. It's just so beautifully written. The magic is so interesting. The characters are so interesting. Their relationships and like the almost like enemies to lovers-ish sort of vibe that I'm getting from it. I'm just loving it. It's so much fun, and I highly recommend you pick it up if you haven't yet. The next question is there a new release you're still waiting for? And this is kind of a hard one for me to answer because I don't really keep up with new releases, honestly. Like, that's something that I really have to do a lot of research on whenever I'm going to be talking about them. I'm low-key really impressed by the people who they just know when books are coming out. I don't. That's not really my thing unless it's like a very specific book that I am very much waiting for. And even at that point, I might only know the month that it's coming out, not even like the real date. But I did realize that I have on my want to read shelf on Goodreads that is coming out very soon, actually December 26th, and that is On the Plus Side by Jenny L. Howe. I believe that I own a book that Jenny has written before. I'm not quite sure, but I do remember hearing about this book a couple of months ago and putting it on my Goodreads, and it's basically a plus-size romance. I'm really excited about it, but I think it's going to be really interesting, and I'm always really excited about any plus-size romance, regardless of what the plot is. Like, the synopsis does not matter to me. I'm more intrigued by the fact that there is going to be plus-size representation. I believe that she wrote The Makeup Test, which I haven't read yet, but I am excited to get to. So maybe I'll have to read that one first. I'm pretty sure that they're not connected at all, but I would like to read that one before I get to the other. The next question is, what are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? And I picked out 3 of them. I tried to do something a little bit different for each book, but you know me, I like the things that I like. And the first book that I'd love to read before the end of the year is The Bennett Women by Eden Appiah Kubi, I believe is how you pronounce her name. But I am really wanting to read this book, and I feel like it'd be perfect for this time of year, like a little Jane Austen retelling of sorts. If you couldn't tell, this is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, and it is contemporary romance, which I think is really exciting. I read Emma of 83rd Street a few months ago, which is obviously a retelling of Emma, which is contemporary romance, and I loved it so much, and it's gotten me really into finding contemporary romance retellings of classic literature. If you have any recommendations for those, let me know. But I am very excited to read this book, and I can't wait to see what I think of it. Like, I don't know if I've ever looked at the Goodreads for this book, so I'm not quite sure what the general consensus is, whether people enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it, and I think that that's going to be fun to go into it without knowing all of that. The second book is one that I've heard a lot of really good things about recently, and that is Starling House by Alexi Harrow. I have had a little bit of a journey with this author's books, honestly. There have been, I think, 2 of Alexi Harrow's books that I have been like not really in love with, we'll say. They've kind of been swings and misses for me, but I am determined to find a book from this author that I love, so I've heard a lot of good things about this one. It sounds like it's really far up my alley, and I did get an arc of it, so I feel a little bit of a, like, I probably should read this. I believe that this is some sort of contemporary fantasy, maybe a little bit gothic as well. So I am very excited to check it out. And the last book I would love to get to by the end of the year is Vespertine by Margaret Rogerson. I love Margaret Rogerson. She is a tried and true author for me, and I cannot believe that I have not read this book yet. I just keep putting it off, and I know that I shouldn't, but alas. I really want to read this book. I think I'm going to love it. I think it might be one of my new favorites. I have really high hopes for it, but also that makes me a little bit nervous. I don't want to overhype it for myself, so I guess we'll see what happens. But yeah, I am very excited to read this book. The second to last question is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite of the year? So this is one that I have actually been told ever since I said that I was reading Uprooted that I might possibly like this one more than Uprooted, and this is very surprising to me. That is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik, and I actually kind of went into these books thinking that this would be my favorite, but then I started to read Uprooted and I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way any book could be better than this one. Like, I seriously love Uprooted so much. But everybody has been messaging me and telling me, no, you're going to love Spinning Silver even more. And I don't know if I believe them, but it does make me really excited to read this book. So we'll see. But this is a sort of Rumpelstiltskin retelling, which I have been really intrigued to find a good one. I don't know if there are many out there, honestly, but I wanted to read one that was from the perspective of a Jewish author because I felt like that was kind of important. So I'm very intrigued to read this book because I grew up with a lot of like folklore books and a lot of fairy tale books. So they were like these like huge thick books that would have like countless fairy tales and folk tales from all different types of cultures, you know, told through different perspectives of different cultures. Like, for example, I had so many Cinderella books, like where it would be different cultures and kind of like their version of Cinderella, or like their version of a Cinderella type fairy tale. So I've always been kind of intrigued by folk tales, fairy tales, all that kind of stuff. And Rumpelstiltskin was always one of the ones that caught my attention as a kid. So I would love to read a really good retelling of that story. And I've heard so many good things about this one that I am very excited to read it, and I will be very surprised if I finally get to it and I absolutely love it. So fingers crossed. I have high hopes, but we'll see. And the last question is, have you already started making reading plans for next year? And I think that I kind of have a little bit. I always go into every year with a certain set of reading plans, and I like to make those lists kind of towards the last week of each year because I think that, you know, things change and my perspectives change really quickly. So I never want to make plans too far in advance. I think one of the things that I would love to do in 2023 is read more Shakespeare. I kind of fell off a little bit on the Shakespeare wagon for a while, I would say. I haven't read a Shakespeare play in probably over a year or so, and I feel like I have just really slacked on that. It's so weird because I'm like, when was the last time I even read Hamlet? Like, I used to reread Hamlet nearly every single month. Like, I was kind of obsessed with it for a while, and I still am in a way, but I want to like rekindle my love for Shakespeare. So that's definitely something that I would love to work on in 2024, is reread all my favorites, read some new ones, and just kind of get that love back for Shakespeare. And yeah, I kind of just want to read a lot more classics in general. Like, I have a classic shelf up here. It's this one that I'm pointing to, and I would love to read more classics. I have so many on my shelf that I have never read that I am desperate to read. Alright, so that was the entire tag. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a really fun time answering these questions. Maybe I'll do another book tag somewhere down the line. That'd be a lot of fun. But these kind of videos always take me back to like early booktube, and I think that that is just the best. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little Vlogmas episode and the book tag and all of my answers, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, Storygraph, and TikTok, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye!